Imagine reaching into a jar of old pennies and finding a coin that looks completely ordinary, yet carries a quiet history from one of the most dramatic decades in American life. A penny that doesn't shout for attention, but rewards those who know what to look for. Today, we're talking about the 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a small coin with a surprisingly interesting story at first glance. The 1968 Lincoln penny seems like nothing special. It's brown or slightly red. It shows Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, and it's likely passed through countless hands over the last half-century. But this coin marks an important moment in U.S. coin history, and for collectors, it represents the return of a tradition that had briefly disappeared. The 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was struck in Philadelphia. At the time, the Philadelphia Mint did not place a mint mark on its coins, so the absence of a letter under the date is not a mistake. It simply tells us where the coin was made. Millions of Americans still confuse no mint mark with rare error. But in this case, the missing mark is exactly how the coin was meant to look. To understand why this penny matters, we need to step back into the late 1960s. The United States was going through major changes. The Vietnam War was ongoing, the civil rights movement was reshaping the nation, and inflation was beginning to rise. These changes even affected pocket change. Just a few years earlier, in the mid-1960s, the U.S. Mint faced a serious coin shortage. People were hoarding silver coins, and demand for everyday change was overwhelming. To fix this, the Mint removed mint marks from all coins between 1965 and 1967. The goal was to discourage collectors from saving coins based on where they were made. In 1968, mint marks officially returned. Coins from Denver and San Francisco once again carried a D or an S, but Philadelphia stayed true to its tradition and continued using no mint mark at all. That makes the 1968 penny historically important, because it represents the first year mint marks came back and Philadelphia's role in that transition. The design of the 1968 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Memorial series. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing right with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, liberty to the left, and the date to the right. This design was created by Victor David Brenner and has been familiar to Americans for generations. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial is shown in fine detail, with the words United States of America and E pluribus unum above it, and 1 cent at the bottom. If you look closely at a well-preserved coin, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. The metal composition of the 1968 penny is another detail collectors care about. It is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This was before the U.S. Mint switched to copper-plated zinc pennies in the early 1980s. Because of that high copper content, these coins feel solid and have a warmer tone compared to modern cents. So why do people talk about the value of a 1968 no-mint mark penny? The truth is, most of them are worth only a little more than face value. In circulated condition, meaning the coin has visible wear, it usually sells for 1 to 3 cents. That might sound disappointing, but value in coin collecting often comes from condition, rarity within a type, or unusual errors. Uncirculated examples are where things get more interesting. A 1968 penny that still has its original red color, with no wear and sharp details, can be worth several dollars. Coins graded in top condition by professional grading services have sold for much higher prices. In recent years, high-grade 1968 no-mint mark pennies have appeared at auction. A coin graded MS67 red, meaning it is in near-perfect condition, has sold for over $100. Even higher grades, which are extremely rare because pennies were heavily used, can bring several $100s when two collectors compete for the same piece. Errors are another reason this coin sometimes makes headlines. While the standard 1968 penny is common, error coins from that year can be scarce and valuable. Some examples include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and double die errors, where parts of the lettering appear doubled due to a mistake during the die creation process. A genuine double die error from 1968 can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on how strong the doubling is and the condition of the coin. These are not easy to find, and many supposed examples turn out to be simple wear or damage, but real ones do exist. If you think you might have a valuable 1968 penny, knowing how to identify a real one is important. First, check the date carefully. It should clearly read 1968, with no letter underneath. If you see a D or an S, it was minted elsewhere and is a different variety. Next, look at the overall condition. Sharp details on Lincoln's hair, clear lettering, and minimal scratches are signs of a better coin. Color also matters. Red or red-brown pennies are usually worth more than dark brown ones. If you suspect an error, use a magnifying glass. Look for clear doubling on letters like Liberty or In God We Trust. True doubling will appear raised and part of the design, not flat or smeared. When in doubt, professional coin dealers or grading services can help confirm authenticity. One fun fact about the 1968 penny is that it was minted in enormous numbers. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced well over 1 billion pennies that year. That massive output explains why most examples are common today, but it also makes high-quality survivors more impressive. Another surprising detail is how many of these pennies are still hiding in plain sight. Because they don't look special, people often overlook them. Yet collectors regularly search rolls of pennies hoping to find a sharply struck, fully red 1968 coin that escaped decades of circulation. Collectors love the 1968 no-mint mark penny not because it is rare in general, but because it represents a moment of change. It sits at the crossroads between the coin shortages of the mid-1960s and the return to normal minting practices. It's a reminder of how even small objects reflect larger events in history. For beginners, this coin is also appealing because it's affordable. You don't need a large budget to start collecting Lincoln pennies, and the 1968 issue offers a chance to learn about grading, mint marks, and errors without major risk. For experienced collectors, the challenge lies in finding the best possible example. A flawless 1968 penny is surprisingly hard to locate, and that hunt keeps interest in the coin alive. As we reach the end of this story, it's worth remembering that value isn't always about price. The 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may not make you rich, but it connects you to a specific time in American history, when the nation and its coinage were adjusting to change. So the next time you see a plain-looking 1968 penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. Think about where it's been. Sometimes, the most ordinary coins carry the most quietly fascinating stories, and that's what keeps collectors searching, one penny at a time. Imagine holding a penny that looks completely ordinary, yet could quietly tell the story of America during one of its most uncertain decades. A penny that millions of people spent without a second thought, but that collectors today still search for, examine closely, and sometimes discover surprising value in. This is the story of the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, this coin doesn't try to stand out. It's a small copper-colored penny with Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait on the front. No special symbols, no flashy design changes. But what makes the 1975 Lincoln penny interesting is not how loud it is, but how quietly it reflects its time in history and how certain rare examples can still surprise collectors today. The 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was produced by the Philadelphia Mint. When a penny from this era has no mint mark, it means it was made in Philadelphia, the main mint facility of the United States. In 1975, the U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies, and the Lincoln cent was already one of the most recognizable coins in the world. This was a turbulent time in American history. The country was recovering from the Vietnam War, facing inflation, rising prices, and major economic uncertainty. Every coin made during this period had to be produced efficiently and cheaply, yet still serve everyday Americans who relied on cash for daily purchases. The penny, even though small, played a big role. The design of the 1975 Lincoln penny follows the classic look that had been used for decades. On the front, Abraham Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" along the top, Liberty to the left, and the date, 1975, on the right. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, with its tall columns and the tiny seated statue of Lincoln visible inside the building. Above it reads United States of America, and below it, 1 cent. The metal composition of this penny is especially important. Unlike modern pennies made mostly of zinc, the 1975 Lincoln penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. That gives it a heavier feel and a richer color compared to pennies made after 1982. Many collectors enjoy these older copper pennies simply because they feel more solid and historical in the hand. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1975 no-mint mark pennies are common and worth only a small amount, certain examples can be far more valuable. The difference lies in condition and errors. A typical circulated 1975 penny, one that has been used in everyday transactions, is usually worth only a few cents. But an uncirculated coin, one that looks almost brand new, can be worth several dollars to collectors. Some 1975 pennies have been found with minting errors. These are mistakes that occurred during the coin's production, and they are where the real excitement begins. Errors can include off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned, or doubled lettering, where parts of the text appear slightly doubled. These errors are not damage from use. They happened at the mint and cannot be recreated easily. A strong double die error, especially on Lincoln's face or the date, can increase a coin's value dramatically. Some error coins from this year have sold for hundreds of dollars, depending on how clear and dramatic the mistake is. This is why collectors carefully examine even the most ordinary-looking pennies under magnification. Auction records show that high-grade 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies can fetch impressive prices. Coins graded in near-perfect condition by professional grading services have sold for anywhere from $50 to over $200, and rare error examples can go even higher. These prices may not make headlines like million-dollar coins, but they are significant for a penny that once bought almost nothing. Identifying a real 1975 no-mint mark penny is fairly simple, but spotting a valuable one takes patience. First, check the date. It must clearly read 1975. Next, look below the date. If there is no letter like D or S, then it was made in Philadelphia. Then examine the coin's color and weight. A genuine 1975 penny should have the warm tone of copper and weigh about 3.11 grams. Be cautious of altered coins. Some people try to change dates or remove mint marks to make coins appear rarer than they are. A real coin will show natural wear patterns and consistent metal color. If something looks scratched, uneven, or unnaturally smooth around the date, it could be tampered with. When in doubt, professional coin dealers and grading services can confirm authenticity. One surprising fact about the 1975 penny is how many still exist today. Because so many were produced, millions remain in circulation, forgotten in jars, drawers, and old piggy banks. This abundance makes it exciting because it means valuable examples could still be out there, waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. Collectors love the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny not because it is rare in quantity, but because it represents the final years of the classic copper penny era. Within just a few years, rising copper prices would force the U.S. Mint to change the penny's composition forever. Coins like this are a reminder of a time when American money was heavier, richer in metal, and deeply tied to the country's economic story. For many collectors, the appeal is personal. Maybe this was the kind of penny they carried as a child. Maybe it reminds them of the 1970s of corner stores, gas stations, and simpler transactions. Coins like this connect people to memories, history, and the feeling of holding something real and tangible. The 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny teaches an important lesson. Not every valuable coin looks rare. Sometimes value hides in plain sight, in everyday objects that most people overlook. With curiosity, patience, and a careful eye, even a simple penny can become a fascinating piece of history. So the next time you find an old copper penny in your pocket, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Feel the weight. Because that small, quiet coin might just be carrying a story worth far more than 1 cent. Imagine pulling a penny from your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but could quietly tell the story of an entire year in American history. No gold shine, no silver glow, just a simple brown coin. And yet, for collectors, one specific detail on that penny can make them stop and look twice. Today, we're uncovering the real story behind the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin millions of Americans have handled, spent, and overlooked without ever knowing what makes it special. The 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck in the United States during a time of major change in American life. If you look closely at this coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, just like pennies that came before and after it. But what sets this coin apart is what you don't see. There is no mint mark beneath the date. That missing letter tells us exactly where this penny was made and why collectors still care about it today. In 1988, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year to keep up with everyday commerce. Pennies were still heavily used for cash purchases, vending machines, and daily transactions. Most Americans never thought twice about them. The Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest mint in the country, produced a huge number of Lincoln pennies that year. Coins made in Philadelphia traditionally do not carry a mint mark, and that's why the 1988 no mint mark penny exists. This penny was part of the long-running Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which began in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1988, the design had become deeply familiar to the public. On the front, Lincoln's right-facing portrait was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, a design first introduced in 1909. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stood proudly, with Lincoln's statue visible inside if you look closely. The metal composition of the 1988 penny is another interesting detail. Earlier Lincoln cents were mostly copper, but by the 1980s, the mint had switched to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. The 1988 penny is made of 97.5% zinc with just 2.5% copper. This change helped reduce production costs, but it also made modern pennies more vulnerable to damage, corrosion, and wear over time. At first glance, the 1988 no mint mark penny looks just like countless others, but collectors know that value often comes from small details. Condition matters a great deal. Most of these pennies were heavily circulated, meaning they were used for years and show scratches, dull surfaces, and worn details. Those examples are usually worth only face value. However, coins that were carefully preserved or never circulated at all can be far more desirable. Another reason collectors pay attention to this coin is the possibility of minting errors. Errors are mistakes that happen during the coin-making process, and they can turn an ordinary penny into something collectible. With the 1988 no mint mark penny, collectors look for off-center strikes, double strikes, clipped planchets, or weak details caused by worn dies. These errors are not common, but they do exist, and when authenticated, they can sell for significantly more than 1 cent. There is also interest in high-grade examples. A 1988 no mint mark penny that looks almost brand new, with full original luster and no visible wear, can stand out in a sea of ordinary coins. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a scale that measures how well the coin has been preserved. Pennies from 1988 that achieve very high grades are scarce, simply because so few were saved carefully at the time. When it comes to real collector values, most circulated 1988 no mint mark pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. But uncirculated examples can sell for a few dollars, depending on quality. Pennies with certified mint errors or exceptional grades have sold for higher amounts at auctions and coin shows. While this is not a coin that typically sells for thousands of dollars, it is a great example of how everyday objects can gain value under the right circumstances. If you're wondering how to identify a genuine 1988 no mint mark penny, it's easier than you might think. First, look at the date on the front. It should read 1988. Then look just below the date. If there is no letter like D or S, the coin was made in Philadelphia. The weight should be around 2.5 grams, and the coin should stick slightly to a magnet only if damaged, since it is not made of steel. Be cautious of altered coins where mint marks may have been removed. Under magnification, tampering often leaves visible marks or scratches. One fun detail about this penny is how easily it blends into daily life. Many collectors today got their start by finding coins like this in pocket change. The 1988 penny reminds people that you don't need rare gold coins to enjoy collecting. Sometimes the fun comes from learning the history behind something simple and familiar. Another surprising fact is how many of these pennies were destroyed over time. Zinc cents are prone to bubbling and corrosion if exposed to moisture. As a result, truly clean and well-preserved examples from 1988 are harder to find today than you might expect, even though millions were originally made. Collectors love the 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny because it represents the everyday side of American history. It comes from a period when cash was king, and pennies still mattered in daily transactions. It's also an accessible coin. You don't need a large budget or special connections to find one. You might already have one sitting in a jar, drawer, or old wallet. For many collectors, this penny is not about getting rich. It's about the thrill of the search, the satisfaction of spotting small details, and the connection to the past. Each 1988 penny has passed through countless hands, across stores, homes, and cities, carrying silent stories along the way, so the next time you see a penny dated 1988 with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Hold it for a moment. Look at Lincoln's face. Think about where it's been and what it represents. In the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary coin can spark curiosity, tell a story, and invite you to look closer. And sometimes that simple act of paying attention is where the real value begins. Most people have held this coin in their hand and never gave it a second thought. But what if I told you that a simple 1989 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark at all, could tell a powerful story about American history, hidden details, and why some ordinary-looking coins quietly become collector favorites? This is the story of the 1989 no mint mark Lincoln penny at first glance. This coin looks just like countless other pennies sitting in jars, drawers, or old wallets across the country. It shows Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. And yet, this exact penny represents the end of an era, a moment in U.S. coin history that collectors still pay close attention to today. The 1989 Lincoln penny was struck during a time of major change in America. The Cold War was nearing its end. The Berlin Wall was about to fall. Technology was accelerating. And quietly, inside U.S. mint facilities, billions of pennies were being produced to keep everyday commerce moving. When a penny from 1989 has no mint mark, it means it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. Unlike Denver or San Francisco coins, Philadelphia pennies did not carry a mint mark at that time. So the absence of a mint mark is not a mistake. It is part of the design. But even common coins can become meaningful and sometimes valuable depending on their condition, their story, and the small details most people never notice. To understand this penny, we need to step back and look at what the Lincoln cent represents. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person instead of a symbolic figure. By 1989, Lincoln had already been on the penny for 80 years, making it one of the longest-running designs in American coinage history. In 1989, the front of the coin still featured the familiar portrait of Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1989 to the right. The back shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look closely at the memorial, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside. It's one of the few U.S. coins where the same person appears on both sides. The metal composition of the 1989 penny is another important detail. By this time, pennies were no longer made primarily of copper. In 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition to save money. The 1989 penny is made of 97.5% zinc, with a thin copper coating on the outside. That change alone makes the 1989 penny part of a transitional generation of coins. Older collectors remember when pennies felt heavier and sounded different. The 1989 penny belongs to the modern era, when cost efficiency became just as important as tradition. So why do collectors care about a penny that was produced in massive numbers? The answer lies in condition, errors, and survival. More than 5 billion pennies were minted in Philadelphia in 1989. That sounds like an overwhelming number, and it is. But most of those coins were used heavily. They were dropped on sidewalks, scraped across counters, stored in damp places, or worn smooth over decades of circulation. Finding a 1989 no mint mark penny in average condition is easy. Finding one in truly pristine condition is not. Coins are graded on a scale that measures how much wear they show. Pennies from 1989 that were never circulated, known as uncirculated coins, are far more desirable to collectors. A penny that still has its original shine, sharp details, and no visible wear can be worth many times more than face value. Some high-grade examples of the 1989 no mint mark penny have sold for surprising prices at auction. While most are worth only a few cents, top-quality specimens graded by professional services have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their condition. But condition is only part of the story. Errors are where things get truly interesting. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. Dies can wear out. Machines can misalign. Metal blanks can shift. When these errors slip past quality control, they become rare variations that collectors actively search for. Some 1989 pennies are known for errors like off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. Others may show doubled features, where parts of the lettering or numbers appear slightly repeated. There are also examples with weak strikes, missing details, or unusual surface marks caused during production. One error collectors watch closely for is doubling in the date or lettering. While true double die errors are rare, they can dramatically increase a coin's value when confirmed by experts. Another detail collectors look for is the spacing of the letters in America on the back of the coin. Certain years have variations known as close AM or wide AM, referring to how close the letters A and M are. While 1989 is not the most famous year for this variety, careful collectors still inspect their coins because subtle differences can matter to us. So how do you tell if your 1989 no mint mark penny is real and worth examining? First, check the front of the coin under good lighting. Look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair, coat, and facial features. The more detail you see, the less where the coin has. Next, check the back. Look at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. On high-quality coins, the steps are clear and well-defined. Blurry or flat steps indicate wear. Then, weigh the coin. A standard 1989 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences in weight could suggest damage or an unusual error. Also, examine the edge and surface. Real coins will show consistent wear patterns. Be cautious of coins that look artificially altered or plated to appear special. It's important to remember that most counterfeit coins target high-value rarities, not common pennies. But altered coins do exist, especially those modified to look like errors. If something seems unusual, professional verification is always the safest route. Beyond value, the 1989 no mint mark penny has charm because of what it represents. It comes from the final decade of the Lincoln Memorial reverse, which would be replaced in 2009 by a new design celebrating Lincoln's life. It reflects a time when cash was still king, when pennies played a daily role in American life, and when small change carried real purchasing power. There are also fun details many people don't realize. For example, if you line up pennies from 1982 through the early 1990s, you can often spot subtle color differences due to changes in copper plating thickness. Some 1989 pennies appear slightly lighter or darker than others, depending on how they were stored. Collectors also enjoy searching rolls of old pennies for high-grade examples. A single roll found in an old bank stash or forgotten drawer can contain coins that never entered circulation, frozen in time since 1989. That sense of discovery is a big reason collectors love this coin. It's not about instant riches. It's about the thrill of finding something special in a place everyone else overlooks. The 1989 no mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that history doesn't always come in gold or silver. Sometimes it comes in copper-colored zinc, passed quietly from hand to hand for decades. So the next time you see a penny dated 1989, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look closer. Turn it over. Check the details. You might not find a fortune, but you will be holding a small piece of American history that has traveled through time, economy, and everyday life. And who knows? Somewhere out there, in a jar or a pocket or an old collection, there may still be a nearly perfect 1989 penny waiting to be noticed for the first time. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary coin can have an extraordinary story, if you're willing to look closely enough. Imagine finding a penny in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but carries a quiet story of American history, modern minting, and a few surprising twists that collectors still search for today. This is the story of the 1997 D-Mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin almost everyone has seen, yet very few truly understand. The 1997 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck by the United States Mint in Denver. The small letter D under the date tells us exactly where it was made. At first glance, it looks just like most modern pennies, with Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But behind that familiar design is a moment in American history, a change in metal, and a handful of unusual details that make this coin far more interesting than its face value suggests. BY 1997. The Lincoln penny had already been part of American life for nearly a century. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Over the decades, the penny witnessed wars, economic shifts, and major changes in how coins were made. The year 1997 sits firmly in the modern era, during a time of economic growth, expanding technology, and massive coin production. The Denver Mint played a major role that year. Millions upon millions of pennies were struck to keep up with everyday commerce. Vending machines, cash registers, parking meters, and household jars all needed fresh coins. The 1997 D-penny was never meant to be rare. It was designed to circulate, to be spent, saved, and often forgotten. And yet, that very fact makes surviving high-quality examples and unusual errors more interesting today. The front of the coin features the familiar Lincoln portrait designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" along the top, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1997 to the right. Beneath the date sits the small D mint mark. On the back is the Lincoln Memorial, a design used from 1959 through 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, a detail many people never noticed that in 1997, pennies were no longer made from solid copper like older coins. Instead, they were composed of zinc with a thin copper coating. This change had happened in 1982 to reduce costs. The 1997 D penny weighs about 2.5 grams and has a bright copper color when new, though many have darkened over time due to wear and exposure. This lighter composition makes modern pennies easier to damage, which is one reason pristine examples are harder to find than you might expect. So why does this coin matter to collectors if it was made in such large numbers? The answer lies in condition, errors, and subtle variations. Most 1997 D pennies are worth just 1 cent. But coins that escaped circulation and remain in mint condition can be worth significantly more. Collectors look for sharp details, strong original color, and no signs of wear. A flawless example with full red luster can stand out among millions of ordinary coins. Errors are where the real excitement begins. While the most famous double-die Lincoln cent from 1997 came from the Philadelphia Mint, Denver coins from this year are still known for interesting mistakes. These include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, broad strikes caused by missing collars, and occasional die cracks or die chips. These errors happened during the high-speed minting process, when thousands of coins were struck every minute. Some collectors have found 1997 D pennies with repunched mint marks, where the D appears slightly doubled or uneven. Others search for coins with unusually strong or weak strikes that change the appearance of Lincoln's face or the memorial. Each error tells a small story about what went wrong during production, and collectors value these moments of imperfection. When it comes to value, real-world auction results show how condition and rarity matter. A circulated 1997 D penny is usually worth only face value. An uncirculated example might sell for a few cents to a few dollars. But coins graded by professional services in very high mint state grades, especially with full red color, have sold for much more. In top condition, some have reached prices in the tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on demand and scarcity at that grade. Error coins can go higher. A clear off-center strike or dramatic mint error from 1997 D can sell for anywhere from $20 to several $100s, depending on how unusual it is. These are not everyday finds, but they do exist, and they keep collectors searching through rolls of pennies even today. Knowing how to identify a genuine 1997 D penny is important, especially as interest grows. Start by checking the date and mint mark under good lighting. The D should look clean and properly formed. The coin should weigh around 2.5 grams. A magnet test can also help, since genuine pennies are not magnetic. Look closely at the design details, especially Lincoln's face and the memorial, to make sure nothing looks cast, blurry, or artificially altered. Fakes are rare for this coin because most examples are low value, but altered coins do exist. Some people try to add or change mint marks, or artificially create the appearance of an error. Real mint errors usually show natural flow lines, consistent wear, and no signs of tampering. When in doubt, experienced collectors or professional grading services can help confirm authenticity. There are also fun details that make the 1997 D penny more enjoyable to collect. Many people don't realize that by the late 1990s, it cost more than 1 cent to produce a penny. that makes every 1997 penny a small example of how tradition sometimes outweighs economics. Another interesting fact is that children born in 1997 are now adults, meaning this coin has quietly aged alongside an entire generation. Collectors today appreciate the 1997 D. Lincoln penny because it represents the everyday side of American numismatics. It reminds us that valuable coins don't always come from ancient times or dramatic events. Sometimes they come from ordinary years, hiding in plain sight. Roll hunters still search banks for high-grade examples and errors. Beginners enjoy it because it's affordable and easy to find. Advanced collectors enjoy the challenge of locating perfect specimens or unusual mistakes. The coin also holds emotional value. Many people remember the late 1990s as a time of optimism and change. Holding a penny from 1997 can spark memories of childhood, first jobs, or simple moments when spare change mattered more than we realized. In the end, the 1997 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny is not about instant riches. It's about curiosity, history, and the thrill of discovery. It proves that even the most common coin can become interesting when you slow down and look closely. The next time you see a penny dated 1997 with a small D beneath the year, take a second look. You might just be holding a tiny piece of modern American history, waiting to tell its story. Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it was quietly minted during one of the most important turning points in modern American history. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, but the story behind it might surprise you. Today, we're uncovering the real truth about the 2002 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, yet one that holds a fascinating place in American coin history. The 2002 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck by the United States Mint in Denver. The small letter D below the year tells us exactly where it was made. At first glance, it looks just like millions of other Lincoln pennies. Abraham Lincoln faces right on the front, calm and familiar, just as he has appeared on the penny for more than a century. But this coin was produced at a very specific moment in time, and that context gives it meaning far beyond its face value. The year 2002 was a period of transition for the United States. The country was adjusting to a new century, new technology, and a new economic reality after the events of 2001. Cash was still king, and pennies were being struck in massive numbers for everyday use. The Denver Mint alone produced over 3.5 billion Lincoln cents in 2002. That staggering number tells us something important right away. This coin was meant to circulate. It was meant to be used, spent, and forgotten. But history has a way of turning ordinary objects into artifacts. The Lincoln cent itself has a long legacy. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 2002, Lincoln had already been on the penny for more than 90 years, making it one of the longest-running designs in American coinage. When you hold a 2002 D penny, you're holding part of that uninterrupted tradition. Let's talk about how this coin was made. The 2002 D Lincoln penny is composed primarily of zinc, with a very thin copper coating on the outside. This change in metal composition actually happened back in 1982, when rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to find a cheaper alternative. So while the coin looks copper, it's mostly zinc inside. That makes it lighter than older pennies and also more vulnerable to damage if the copper plating is scratched or worn away. The front of the coin features the familiar Lincoln portrait designed by Victor David Brenner. You'll see the word Liberty to the left, the year 2002 to the right, and the phrase "In God We Trust" across the top. Below the year is the small but important D Mint mark. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, a design that had been used since 1959. Inside the memorial, if you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated in the center. It's one of the most detailed reverse designs ever placed on a U.S. coin. Now here's the question many people ask. Is the 2002 D Lincoln penny rare or valuable? The honest answer is that most of them are not rare at all. Because billions were made, a typical circulated example is worth only 1 cent. You could find dozens in loose change today. But that's not the full story. Value in coin collecting often comes down to condition and mistakes. While the average 2002 D penny is common, examples in near-perfect condition are much harder to find. Coins that were never circulated, never scratched, and never exposed to wear can be worth significantly more to collectors. In professional grading systems, these are known as mint state coins. Some 2002D pennies in extremely high grades have sold for surprising prices. At major coin auctions, certified mint state examples with sharp details and original luster have sold for $20, $50, or even more, depending on the grade. While that may not sound life-changing, it's remarkable for a coin that most people consider worthless pocket change. Even more interesting are error coins. During high-speed production, mistakes sometimes slip through. A 2002D penny might show an off-center strike, where the design is not properly aligned. Others may have die cracks, doubling on letters, or missing elements. These errors are not common, and collectors actively search for them. A dramatic error on a 2002D penny can sell for hundreds of dollars, sometimes more, depending on how visible and unusual the mistake is. One known type of error collectors watch for is doubling in the date or lettering. This happens when the die strikes the coin more than once in slightly different positions. To the naked eye, letters may appear thick or shadowed. While true double dies are rare, even minor doubling can increase interest and value. Because this coin is modern, fakes do exist, especially when someone tries to pass off a damaged coin as a rare error. To identify a real 2002D Lincoln penny, start with weight. It should weigh about 2.5 grams. A digital scale can quickly tell you if something is off. Next, look closely at the mint mark. On genuine coins, the D is clean and well-formed, not glued on or altered. Magnification helps here. A real mint mark is part of the coin, not an addition. Also examine the surface. Genuine errors usually show natural metal flow and consistent wear. Artificial damage often looks rough, uneven, or suspiciously intentional. If you ever think you found something special, professional coin grading services can authenticate and grade the coin, giving it credibility in the collector market. There are also fun details about the 2002D penny that most people never think about. For example, this coin was produced before smartphones, before social media became mainstream, and before digital payments took over everyday life. It represents the tail end of an era when physical coins were essential to daily transactions. Parking meters, vending machines, and payphones all relied on coins like this one. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln Memorial reverse would soon be retired. Just 7 years later, in 2009, the U.S. Mint introduced new Lincoln designs to celebrate his bicentennial. That means the 2002D penny is part of the final stretch of the classic Lincoln Memorial era, a design many collectors now view with nostalgia. Collectors today are drawn to the 2002D Lincoln penny not because it's rare in quantity, but because it tells a quiet story. It reflects mass production, modern minting technology, and everyday American life at the start of the 21st century. For new collectors, it's an affordable entry point. For experienced collectors, it's a challenge to find the best possible examples among billions of ordinary ones. Most people would never give this coin a second glance. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and yet, the 2004 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny has quietly become one of those coins that makes collectors stop, lean in, and ask a simple question. What if this everyday penny is hiding something more? This is the story of the 2004 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that passed through millions of hands, grocery stores, and cash registers, but still carries history, mystery, and in certain cases, surprising value. The coin we're talking about today is a Lincoln 1-cent coin dated 2004, with no mint mark beneath the date. When a Lincoln penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. This isn't a mistake. It's a long-standing tradition. But what makes this specific year interesting is the moment in American history it represents, and the hidden details collectors now search for. By 2004, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for 95 years. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history. In 2004, the familiar Lincoln portrait on the front was still exactly how Americans remembered it: calm, dignified, and instantly recognizable. The year 2004 was a transitional time for the United States. The country was deep into the digital age, but still relied heavily on cash. Pennies were everywhere. Vending machines, tip jars, couch cushions, and school lunch lines. The U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents that year to keep up with demand, and the Philadelphia Mint struck well over 1 billion coins without a mint mark. On the front of the coin, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, a design originally created by sculptor Victor David Brenner. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty. In front of his face is the date, 2004. And just beneath that date, you'll notice something important, or rather, you won't notice anything at all. There is no mint mark on the back. The coin features the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, one of the smallest yet most detailed elements ever placed on a circulating U.S. coin. The 2004 no mint mark Lincoln penny is made of zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition began in 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to change materials. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. Nothing about it screams rare at first glance. So why does this penny matter? The answer lies in condition, errors, and overlooked details. Most 2004 Lincoln pennies are only worth 1 cent. That's the honest truth. But coin collecting isn't about averages. It's about exceptions. And this is where things get interesting. Some 2004 no mint mark pennies were struck with errors during the minting process. These errors can dramatically increase a coin's value, sometimes turning a 1-cent coin into something worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. One of the most sought-after errors is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin isn't properly aligned during striking. The result is a design that appears shifted, leaving part of the coin blank. A well-centered off-center error where the date is still visible can be highly collectible. Another valuable error is the broad strike. This occurs when the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than normal. Broad-struck 2004 Lincoln pennies often look slightly flattened and oversized, and collectors actively search for them. There are also double die errors, where parts of the design appear doubled, especially in the lettering or date. These are caused by a misalignment in the die used to strike the coin. A true double die shows clear separation, not just a blurry shadow. Clipped planchet errors are another possibility. This happens when the metal strip used to create coin blanks overlaps or misfeeds, resulting in a coin with a curved or straight missing section. These errors are dramatic and easy to spot, which makes them popular among collectors. Even without errors, condition alone can make a difference. A 2004 no mint mark Lincoln penny that has never circulated, with full original luster and no visible wear, can be worth several dollars in certified mint state condition. Coins graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services have sold for impressive prices compared to their face value. At auction, most circulated examples sell for exactly 1 cent. But high-grade uncirculated examples have sold for anywhere from $10 to over $100, depending on the grade. Error coins can sell for much more. Some dramatic mint errors from this year have sold for several $100s, and in rare cases, over 1,000. Identifying a real 2004 no mint mark Lincoln penny is straightforward, but careful observation matters. First, check the date. It should clearly read 2004. Next, look beneath the date. If there is no letter, no D, and no S, then it was struck in Philadelphia. That is normal and correct. The weight should be close to 2.5 grams. A digital scale is helpful here. The coin should not be magnetic. The color should be a copper tone, though circulation can darken it over time. Be cautious of altered coins. Some people try to remove mint marks from Denver or San Francisco coins to make them appear like Philadelphia strikes. Under magnification, tampering often leaves scratches or unnatural surfaces. A genuine coin will have smooth, consistent metal around the date area. Fun facts make this coin even more interesting. In 2004, the U.S. Mint was already planning a major redesign of the Lincoln cent. Just 5 years later, in 2009, the reverse design would change to honor Lincoln's life stages. That means the 2004 penny is part of the final stretch of the classic Lincoln Memorial era. Another surprising detail is how many of these coins are still sitting unnoticed in jars and drawers. Because they're relatively recent, many people don't think to check them. That's exactly why collectors keep searching. Some collectors enjoy building date sets, where they collect 1 penny from every year. Others focus only on error coins. and some simply enjoy the thrill of finding something special in everyday change. The 2004 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny fits perfectly into all of these collecting styles. Collectors today appreciate this coin not because it's universally rare, but because it represents possibility. It reminds people that valuable coins don't always look old or ancient. Sometimes, they look exactly like the change in your pocket. And that's what makes this penny so fascinating. It's a quiet coin. Common coin. A coin that almost everyone has touched. Yet within that simplicity lies history, craftsmanship, and the chance, however small, that one example escaped the mint with something unusual. So the next time you see a 2004 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Hold it. Look closely. Turn it in the light. Because even the most ordinary coin can have an extraordinary story. And sometimes that story begins with a single cent. Imagine pulling a penny from your pocket that looks completely ordinary, yet carries a story most people never notice. No special shine. No letter under the date. Just a simple Lincoln penny from 2015. But here's the question that makes collectors stop and look twice. Why would a modern penny with no mint mark be talked about at all? Today we're exploring the 2015 no mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it seems like spare change. But once you understand why it exists, how it was made, and what collectors quietly search for, this everyday coin becomes far more interesting than you might expect. The 2015 no mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States during a year of major change for American coinage. When people say, no mint mark, they are usually referring to coins made at the Philadelphia Mint. For most U.S. pennies, Philadelphia does not place a mint mark under the date. That missing letter is not a mistake. It's tradition. And for over a century, it has quietly identified where the coin was born. In 2015, billions of Lincoln pennies were still being produced for everyday use, even though many Americans were already questioning whether the penny still had a future. Rising production costs, changing spending habits, and fewer cash transactions were all part of the conversation. Yet the Lincoln penny continued to be minted, just as it had been since 1909. The history behind the 2015 Lincoln penny begins with Abraham Lincoln himself. His portrait first appeared on the 1-cent coin in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. That decision marked the first time a real person appeared on regular U.S. circulating coinage. More than a century later, Lincoln's image was still there in 2015, quietly connecting modern America to its past. The obverse of the coin shows Lincoln's familiar profile, facing right. This design, originally created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, has been refined over time but remains instantly recognizable. Above Lincoln's head are the words, "In God We Trust." In front of his face is the word "Liberty." And just below is the date, 2015. The reverse design is known as the Union Shield. Introduced in 2010, it replaced the Lincoln Memorial design that many people grew up with. The shield symbolizes Lincoln's role in preserving the Union during the Civil War. Across the shield is a banner with the words, "E pluribus unum," meaning, out of many, one. Above it are the words, "United States of America," and below, 1 cent. In terms of metal, the 2015 Lincoln penny is made mostly of zinc, with a thin outer coating of copper. This composition has been used since 1982. Despite its copper appearance, the coin is actually about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change was made to reduce costs, but it also means modern pennies behave differently than older solid copper cents. So what makes the 2015 no mint mark penny special if so many were made? The answer lies not in the average coin, but in the exceptions. Most 2015 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. However, collectors pay attention to condition, errors, and unusual details. In uncirculated condition, meaning the coin was never used in everyday transactions, a 2015 no mint mark penny can be worth more than face value. Coins graded in near-perfect condition can sell for several dollars, especially when certified by professional grading services. Then there are mint errors. These are mistakes that happen during the coin-making process, and they are where modern pennies can suddenly become interesting. Some 2015 no mint mark pennies have been found with double dies, where parts of the lettering or date appear doubled due to a misalignment during striking. Others show off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or weak strikes that make parts of the design look faded or incomplete. These errors are not intentional and they are not common, which is exactly why collectors look for them. There have also been examples of 2015 pennies with unusual surface issues, such as bubbles, cracks, or laminations caused by problems in the metal. While many damaged coins are not valuable, true mint errors can attract serious interest. At auctions and through private sales, normal uncirculated 2015 no-mint mark pennies typically sell for a few cents to a couple of dollars. However, error coins can sell for much more. Depending on the type and severity of the error, prices can range from $20 to several $100s. In rare cases, dramatic and well-documented errors have sold for even more. Collectors value these coins not because they are old, but because they tell a story of how coins are made and how imperfections slip through massive production systems. In a single year, the U.S. Mint produces billions of coins. Finding an error is like finding a typo in a book printed millions of times. Knowing how to identify a real 2015 no-mint mark penny is important, especially for beginners. First, check the date. It should clearly read 2015. Then look just below the date. If there is no letter, such as a D or an S, it was made in Philadelphia. This is normal and expected. Next, examine the weight and color. A genuine 2015 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams and have a bright copper color, unless it has toned naturally over time. Be cautious of coins that appear unusually thick, thin, or oddly colored, as these could be damaged or altered. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering and Lincoln's portrait. Real mint errors usually show consistent patterns, not random scratches or dents. If something looks suspicious but uneven, it may simply be damage from circulation. Fun facts about the 2015 Lincoln penny make it even more interesting. By 2015, it cost more than 1 cent to produce a penny, fueling debates about whether the coin should be discontinued. Despite this, millions were still minted every month. Another surprising detail is that many 2015 pennies were never released into circulation at all. They were placed into rolls, bags, and collector sets and stored away. This means high-quality examples still exist in large numbers, waiting to be rediscovered. Collectors also enjoy the 2015 penny because it represents a modern chapter in a long-running American story. It belongs to a time when digital payments were rising, yet physical coins still played a role in everyday life. Holding one is like holding a snapshot of a changing economy. Today, collectors appreciate the 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln penny not for dramatic rarity, but for subtlety. It's a coin that rewards careful observation. It encourages people to slow down, look closely, and learn. For beginners, it's an affordable entry point into coin collecting. For experienced collectors, it's a reminder that value isn't always about age. The next time you come across a 2015 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Turn it over. Check the details. Look for the unexpected. Because sometimes, the most ordinary-looking coins are the ones that teach us the most. And if the simple penny made you curious, imagine what other everyday coins might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally notice their story. Have you ever pulled a penny from your pocket, glanced at the date, and wondered if that tiny coin might be hiding a story worth far more than 1 cent? What if I told you that even a modern penny, one most people ignore every day, could surprise you in ways you never expected? Today we're talking about the 2017 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, yet carries history, hidden details, and collector interest that most people never stop to notice. The 2017 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck by the United States Mint in Denver. The small letter D just below the date tells us exactly where it was made. Millions of these pennies were produced and released into everyday circulation, meaning many people have held one without ever thinking twice about it. But as with many U.S. coins, the story goes far beyond face value. To understand this penny, we need to step back and look at why it exists at all. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person. Over time, the design has changed, the metal has changed, and the world around the coin has changed, but Lincoln's portrait has remained a constant symbol of American history. 2017 the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for more than a century. The country was deep into the modern digital age, where cash was used less than ever, yet the U.S. Mint was still producing billions of pennies each year. The 2017 penny represents this interesting moment in history, when physical money continued to exist alongside credit cards, smartphones, and online payments. The obverse, or front, of the 2017 Lincoln penny features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces to the right, with the words, "In God we trust," above his head. To the left is the word liberty, and to the right is the date, 2017, along with the small d mint mark. This design has been used, with minor adjustments, since 1909, making it one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage history. On the reverse side, you'll find the Union Shield design, which was introduced in 2010. The shield represents Lincoln's role in preserving the United States as a single nation during the Civil War. 13 vertical stripes symbolize the original colonies, bound together by a horizontal bar across the top. Above the shield are the words United States of America, and below it is 1 cent. It's a simple design, but full of symbolism. One important thing to know about the 2017 penny is its metal composition. Unlike pennies made before 1982, which were mostly copper, the 2017 penny is made of zinc with a thin copper coating. It contains about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change was made decades ago to reduce production costs, but it also means modern pennies behave differently when damaged or worn. So why would anyone care about a penny from 2017? After all, it's not that old and millions were made. The answer lies in condition, rarity within variety, and errors. Most 2017 pennies you find in circulation are worth exactly 1 cent. Even uncirculated examples are often only worth a few cents. However, collectors are always looking for coins in exceptional condition. A 2017 penny that has never been circulated, with sharp details, full luster, and no scratches, can be desirable to collectors who build complete date and mint sets. The real excitement comes from error coins. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process. These mistakes are unintentional, and that's exactly what makes them interesting. For the 2017 Lincoln penny, collectors have discovered errors such as off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. There are also die cracks, which appear as raised lines caused by cracks in the metal dies used to strike the coin. Another type of error collectors watch for is a doubled die. This occurs when the coin design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on letters or numbers. On a genuine double die, the doubling is part of the design itself, not damage. While major double die varieties for the 2017 penny are rare, minor doubling has been reported and continues to attract attention. There have also been cases of broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out and appear wider than normal. These coins are instantly noticeable and often sell for significantly more than face value. When it comes to real-world value, prices vary widely depending on condition and error type. A standard circulated 2017 penny is worth 1 cent. An uncirculated example might sell for 5 to 25 cents. But error coins are a different story. Off-center strikes from this year have sold for $20 to $100, depending on how dramatic the error is. Well-defined die crack examples can sell for $10 to $50. More unusual errors, especially those certified by professional grading services, can sometimes bring even higher prices. Collectors often rely on professional grading companies like pcgs or NGC to authenticate and grade modern coins. A 2017 penny graded in perfect or near-perfect condition, such as MS67 or higher, can sell for much more than raw examples, especially if demand is strong at the time of sale. Identifying a real 2017 penny is straightforward, but identifying a valuable one takes patience and careful observation. Start by checking the date and the mint mark. The D should be small, clear, and located just below the date. Use good lighting and a magnifying glass to examine the coin's surface. Look closely at the letters, numbers, and edges for signs of doubling, cracks, or unusual shapes. Be cautious of coins that appear altered. Some people try to fake errors by damaging coins intentionally. Scratches? Dense or flattened areas caused by tools or machines do not count as mint errors and usually reduce the coin's value. Genuine mint errors are part of the original strike and will show consistent characteristics across the coin. One fun fact about the 2017 Lincoln penny is that it was produced during a time when debates about eliminating the penny were once again in the spotlight. Many people argued that the penny cost more to produce than it was worth. Despite this, the U.S. Mint continued striking pennies, making the 2017 cent part of an ongoing conversation about the future of American coinage. Another interesting detail is that modern pennies like this one often show signs of corrosion more quickly than older copper cents. Because the core is zinc, damage to the copper plating can expose the zinc underneath, leading to bubbling or pitting. While this damage usually lowers value, it also helps collectors quickly distinguish modern cents from older copper ones. Collectors today love the 2017 Lincoln penny not because it's rare in general, but because it represents the modern era of U.S. coinage. It's a reminder that collectible coins don't have to be ancient to be interesting. Many collectors enjoy searching through pocket change, rolls from the bank, or mint sets, hoping to find that one unusual example that stands out. For beginner collectors, this coin is an accessible starting point. It's easy to find, inexpensive to collect, and perfect for learning how to spot condition differences and mint errors. For experienced collectors, it's another piece in the ongoing puzzle of documenting every variation the U.S. Mint produces. The next time you see a 2017 penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Turn it under the light. Study the details. You might just discover that even a modern, everyday coin can carry hidden value, fascinating history, and the thrill of possibility. And that's the real magic of coin collecting. Sometimes the most interesting stories aren't locked away in vaults or museums. Sometimes they're sitting quietly in your pocket, waiting for someone curious enough to notice.